the Game Awards, the last remaining of the big shows. E3 is gone, PAX seems to be diminished in quality, and I haven't heard about South by Southwest in a while. The only two other major gaming shows that seem to be standing are the Tokyo Game Show and Summer Games Fest, which is kind of, it doesn't really count because it's still owned by Geoff Keighley. It's still, the same guy, the same team, same branding, basically. So the Game Awards really is kind of the center of our current gaming convention sort of system we've got going on, or at least the last remnants of it. With E3 gone, of course, it's still on a slow death, but the Game Awards seems to have more longevity because, well, it's an awards show. It's like the Grammys or the Oscars, The best in the industry come together to celebrate whatever was the greatest game that year. But, honestly, I don't know if the Game Awards can actually be sustained long term, and there's a couple reasons for that. First, I want to talk about the diminishing credibility of the Game Awards. Over the past few years, the Game Awards really has kind of suffered because of Geoff Keighley being extremely biased. Specifically, if you pay attention to Geoff Keighley, you will know there are two people he loves more than anything in the world, that being Hideo Kojima and basically anybody at From Software. Seriously, every awards show that Geoff Keighley hosts will most likely have an appearance by Hideo Kojima, and if a FromSoft game came out that year, then by God is it gonna get at least one award. And this even goes for DLC, which, wow, DLC isn't a full game and really shouldn't be eligible for anything outside of a best DLC category, or maybe best ongoing game if you want to stretch it a bit. But with Shadow of the Erdtree being nominated for actual Game of the Year, up there with stuff like Black Myth Wukong or Astrobot or Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, full games that came out that year, it's devaluing the entire category, and I think pretty much everyone agreed that it was utterly ridiculous, except for, a couple FromSoft diehards that really couldn't take the hint, because most people agree Elden Ring is a fantastic game, but, or at least, they'll say that, but, no one could really stand up for Shadow of the Erdtree being treated on the same level as other full games released that year, and honestly, I am so grateful that it did not actually win, because if it did win, the Game Awards would basically be over. Not saying I actually like the show that much, I think the show is actually quite terrible as it currently stands, and there are quite a few reasons for that, just in the general the way the show is hosted. So first off, the show is suffocated by game trailers. Now, I know that this is kind of like just a nitpick of mine, specifically because most people watch the Game Awards for the trailers, because, who actually cares about the awards being given? They're showing off a trailer for some new game. And usually each year there will be at least one or two decently big announcements at the Game Awards. But ultimately, again, this doesn't really then feel like a Game Awards show. This feels like this isn't a celebration of games. This is basically just another marketing platform for companies to put up their trailers and stuff. And while there have been quite a few reveals of stuff I've really liked at the Game Awards, it doesn't really matter the quality of what gets revealed or released. It's more the spirit of it. This isn't about celebrating as much what has actually come out this year. If you're already looking ahead, oh my god, look, here's the new game by Microsoft, here's the next Sony first party game, here's 3 games revealed by Square Enix, stuff like that. It's just not, it just doesn't feel right. Now, even worse than having game trailers sprinkled throughout is suffocation by advertisers, because the Game Awards, you gotta make your money, and so of course you're going to get every advertiser under the sun that you can convince to sponsor your show. You've got Verizon, you've got food companies, you got classics like Doritos or Mountain Dew, stuff like that, and Again, it kind of goes back to the same feeling as having a ton of game trailers be the real main draw rather than it be an actual awards show. It feels unclean. It feels like, Geoff Keighley is trying to run, this season, as much as he claims he's doing this out of, like, the goodness of his heart, or that he loves games as an art form and a medium, then, filling the show with advertisements is not the way to go about it. Now, with the game trailers, those are advertisements, but at least they're for games, As much as I don't think you're probably giving enough credence and, showcase to games outside of the actual Game of the Year category, at least you're showing off new games within the medium you're supposed to be celebrating. Advertising in general, like, come on. Let's have a gaming advertisement themed around Verizon or something like that. And this actually extends to what I would call brand or franchise placements rather than just product placements. Stuff like the Muppets showing up every time, or having Harrison Ford come out on stage, or another big actor, or Snoop Dogg, or some stuff like that, some stupid shit where you're basically wheeling out a celebrity that no one really cares too much about, and trying to get them to talk about games that they clearly don't know what they're talking about. But, we can, get, like, I don't know, some name recognition, I guess. I genuinely don't know what they're actually trying to do with stuff like that. Snoop Dogg showing up at the last Game Awards, I was like, my jaw was on the floor. Why is this man here? Who cares? But overall, there's also been declining interest and overall quality. I mean, with the Please Wrap It Up situation, with Matan Evan just getting up on stage, there being no security, stuff like that, I feel like the Game Awards is slowly deteriorating from a legitimacy standpoint, especially as there are just so many websites that give awards out. Every website has their own award system. Every YouTube channel does their own awards now. Nothing is really sacred. The Game Awards isn't standing alone as the definitive, game awards thing anymore. And honestly, did it ever really? Or was it just Geoff Keighley's marketing that turned it into that for a bit? Because personally, the Game Awards didn't exist until 2013, right? It was something else before that. And then since then, it's just kind of gone up and down a little bit in terms of if people really truly actually like it or not. But yeah, the quality of the show generally has gone down. They want to shut up the developers as fast as possible for their celebrity guests. They'll tell Christopher Judge to wrap up his heartfelt speech about winning best role for God of War, but they'll give Harrison Ford or Snoop Dogg or whatever Hollywood actor they paid a bunch of money to come out here. They'll let them talk for as long as you want. You'll try and push actual game developers and game actors off of the stage for your flashy, let's get all the celebrities, let's get mainstream appeal in here type of angle. And that's really what irks me about the whole Game Awards now. And is there really anything we can do to fix this? Well, I mean, it's not up to us. I think Geoff Keighley would have to decide to do that, but I don't think he will, because I think Geoff Keighley is really set in his ways. As the owner of this show and as the owner of Summer Games Fest, he's basically convinced that if you don't have these celebrity appearances, if you don't do this stuff, then you're really going to not get a larger audience in. But the core audience that cares about the Game Awards doesn't care about celebrities. They don't care about, these advertisements. They don't care about the Muppets showing up or anything like that 3 years in a row. They care about the awards and the developers that are getting the awards. And honestly, I think the Game Awards would be a much better show if you cut all of that crap out and just focused on giving the developers the time of day to talk about the games they made and what made them special. Now, would that be as marketable? Probably not, but again, I don't know that the show needs to be marketable. You don't need to make it like a $50 million production every year and drag a ton of people out to high value California or wherever to, you know, get them to listen to you prattle on about this art form that you're actively making a mockery of by not actually supporting the developers, you know? I just think it is a really big shame that the Game Awards are like this, and that the Game Awards are pretty much the only show in town now, because I feel like pretty much anybody with a little bit more integrity and want to make an actual good show could outperform Keighley and what he does so easily. But at this point in the industry's evolution, there really is no need or desire to create shows like this anymore. It just puts strain on the developers and stuff, and that's why the Game Awards is still around, because it doesn't create strain on the developers to, you know, just go out and get an award, or to, you know, maybe put up a pre-recorded trailer. You're not promising huge things by doing this. You're not on the E3 show floor showing off like a Perfect Dark or a Fable game 7 or 8 years before it's actually ready, or The Elder Scrolls 6 probably a decade before it's actually real, or half a decade before it's in any real kind of development. So there are some upsides, there are some downsides, but honestly, I think the Game Awards will eventually come crashing down as well. And then we really won't have anything besides maybe the Tokyo Game Show or PAX or something like that to be a real gathering of developers and video game personalities together. But, you know, only time will tell. We'll see what happens.